you can't just be creative. You know, it's gotta blossom.
So that's the cold hard reality of marketing. It's a support function for sales.
By challenging people every day to think about the 1% improvement they can make, that's how you get the daily innovations.
What makes you unique?
Well, we're the only company in the world that does what we do currently. There are others who are trying, but we're the only ones who've succeeded. We send private individuals on the experience of a lifetime, and we send them into space. We send them on a Russian rocket, so we arrange trips through the Russian Space Agency. And our customers are extremely wealthy, successful individuals. Ticket price at the moment, I'll just get it out there, it's $50 million if you wanted to go next year.
Celia?
K12 is the largest provider of online individualized education for grades K through 12. It is an industry that we have largely created and are the leader, although most people have never heard of it. If you've heard of University of Phoenix and Strayer and DeVry, what's happening in the post-sec is happening now in the K through 12 market. So we have educated over 200,000, actually over 300,000 kids at the end of this year, full-time online, which is our main line of business. And our primary audience are moms and dads who are looking to solve what is a well-known problem in public education, which is an educational system that really hasn't changed in 100 years. And we have figured out how to deliver a very powerful, individualized education to anyone in the world.
So like Celia, Blackboard is an education technology provider. We're one of the largest in the world, really. And we've got our start from, some of you might know us as a learning management system, having taken courses in college and putting that information online. But some of you who may have not followed us recently, we've acquired several companies over the last few years to expand our portfolio, to stay within the education space, but really acquire new technologies to bring our customers new advanced types of learning. So whether it's synchronous, like a WebEx type solution, or even getting your course information on the phone. I personally work, we cover the span of a K to gray, as we say, in the markets there. I focus on the gray, so really the adult learners, and as Celia mentioned, Strayer and a lot of other for-profit institutions are my clients.
What keeps you awake at night? What are your top 2 or 3 challenges? Kevin?
At least for us, I'm sure everybody's struggling with bandwidth and budget and you know, a lot of other things. In order to solve that, we looked for things that we could replicate. And what I mean by that is a lot of our marketing efforts, and I'm sure you can all relate, I called it the one and done strategy. So you would work so hard to get that one project out the door, and then you were going to the next project that you would work so hard to get out the door. But meanwhile, your programs would not be able to be replicable. So we looked at everything to say, how can we impact our marketing efforts through automation? There's a lot of great marketing automation tools out there. We looked for things outside agencies that can help us and provide things that, while they're important to us to work and control, it's not a good use of our time. So we have to be able to be masters of the market and not necessarily masters of marketing. So if that makes sense to you. So understanding the buyer's pains were critical to me and my team, and less about doing an email campaign or less about writing a blog. You know, all those things are, of course, incredibly important to get out there, but we had to make it more of a machine. So the advice I would give you is what are the parts that you can, you know, make coin operated and put it on a machine, and don't be so concerned about owning the control of that part of it. You will increase your visibility and you know, your stature within the company by being able to do those things.
Celia.
So we are a very high growth company in a field that is changing daily. So what keeps me up at night is figuring out how to expand rapidly while thinking smartly, taking on new lines of business. You know, a year ago we were a 1 1/8 product line company. We are now a 4 to 5 product line company, while experiencing 30 to 40% growth in our main core business, acquiring companies, integrating other brands. It is a massive amount to do, and there is never time to stop and think. So I'm spending a lot of time while continuing to drive efficiency in what we've done for the last 5 years, in thinking about how I need to change this team and keep the culture alive at the same time.
Tom, what's between you and the next 5 slots that you will sell to go in space?
Well, our biggest challenge really, and what keeps me up at night, and I think a lot of other people in our company up at night, which gives me some solace, at least I'm not the only one carrying the burden, is finding the next customer. $50 million is an awful lot of money, so we have a very small market. There is no list for that market. Once you go beyond the Forbes, billionaire list or the Forbes 400, there are very few other lists out there. Our product and our experience requires you to go into training for 3, 4, 5 months. And it's difficult for anybody to take. If you imagine yourselves, can you imagine taking 3 or 4 months out of your life? Imagine that for somebody who is owning and has built a successful business of some kind. So our challenge is finding not only people who are interested, who can afford it, but also who have the time, and the time now when it suits us as a business to actually to do that. So that presents a number of different marketing challenges, and really the way we've figured out to try to solve that is to build the best database we possibly can of the wealthy people around the world and try to get access to them. These people are not easy to reach. They have assistants who have assistants who have assistants in some cases, and they have multiple homes and multiple businesses, and tracking them down to one place. Where do you send that piece of direct mail? Which office do you call to try to reach them? Where do you host that party? Is it in New York, in LA, in Paris, and somewhere else? Where are they going to be at that particular time? There's no real answer to that. So we're presented with a large number of challenges, all principally based around how do we reach our customer. So we spend a lot of time over the last few years researching and researching and researching as much as we possibly can and trying to find those triggers. We've had 8 customers. Actually, we've had 7 customers because one was a repeat customer. Try profiling a customer base of 7 and try to reach some concrete conclusions. It's not an easy task to do, but I think we have a pretty good handle, not just on based profile of our customers, but other people who've raised their hand and said it's interesting. If you include those in the mix, we're getting up into the multiple dozens, hundreds, so we can reach a better profile. So we're getting smarter and smarter each year.
How do you infuse innovation in your marketing team?
So I think about innovation in a couple of different ways. There are the headline kind of worthy types of innovation. Probably the easiest analogy or the easiest examples would be to look back at Independence Air, because everyone's flown a plane. So you all have the same experiences flying a plane because no one mostly does things differently. So innovation, when you're thinking about being in a highly commoditized market, is about challenging truisms. So why do safety announcements have to be boring? Does the FAA dictate that they're boring? Actually, no, as it turns out. So we had celebrities record our safety announcements, and actually they were quite funny and memorable, and as it turns out, people actually listen to them. Do you have to have the ramp agents looking like they couldn't care less about what happens to your bag or if it gets on the plane? Can you turn that into a moment of customer loyalty? Sure, if you give them signs to hold and turn it into a bit of theater, and all of a sudden you notice that they're tucking their shirts in because after they load the bags, they get to walk around the plane saying, your bags are now loaded, see you on the flip side. And the transformation in terms of both employee morale and what happens on the plane, where all of a sudden you're having this little bit of theater, is fascinating. So there's sort of some obvious, why does waiting in the airport when the airport's closed due to weather have to be a traumatic experience. Well, it doesn't if you bring music in and comedians in and have games and prizes for kids. You can actually turn that also into a moment to engender customer loyalty. So my job is to shake people out of the weeds and to challenge the complacency. And by challenging people every day to think about the 1% improvement they can make, that's how you get the daily innovations.
You know, I definitely agree with everything said there. I think things to add is, you know, innovation I think is much about company culture, and while that's easy to do, but anybody who's a frontline manager or, you know, is in that experience, you have to create that sense of opportunity. Everybody has great ideas, but, you know, are they, you know, is there a sense of culture where everybody is comfortable to bring those ideas up? So, which, you know, that is important. So, you know, certainly us as leaders, you know, you have to create that opportunity to do it and not, you know, do that. So the other thing I believe too is timing. So the timing in which you innovate, I always think about, I started my career in an ad agency, and one of the funniest things that I used to see other account executives do to creative people was they would go to creative people and say, be creative. You know, you can't just be creative, you know, it's gotta blossom. So the timing of it. So what I mean by timing is, a lot of times when things are going really, really well, that's when I want to shake things up. So not to use status quo and do it at that point. So when our sales numbers are good, that's when I said, do we have the right strategy in place? Not when it's bad, because at that point everybody's feeling the stress, everybody's trying to get, you know, things buckled down. So I think, you know, innovation happens as much about timing and the talent that you and the culture you can create. As important as certainly the ideas that you can just be, because you can think of fun ideas, you could do something zany and crazy, but is that innovation? Yeah, maybe not.
Tom, how do you innovate with people that are on the Forbes list of 100? The product is innovative, that's for sure.
That's exactly the challenge that we face, because the product in itself is pretty new. Okay, we've been around for 10 years, but in, you know, to poll an average group, people who've heard of space adventures, who know this is possible, you kind of, once you probe a little bit, they say, maybe I've heard a little bit about that somewhere. Didn't Lance Bass do it, or something like that is one of the responses we get all the time. He didn't, by the way, because he wasn't working with us. So yeah, our product is innovative in itself, which is a great topic of conversation with journalists, you know, from all around the world. We get a huge amount of PR because we're a fun company for these people to cover. The other challenge we have from innovation, and because we're a fun company, is we get approached all the time by, it could be anybody. I mean, travel companies from overseas, or a concierge company, or somebody who wants to use our product and wants to represent our product in some way, shape, or form. Which is fine, because partnerships are a great way for us as a small company of broadening our marketing and sales capability. But similarly, the challenge we have with that is finding a partnership that is genuine. And somebody who's not just looking to have us as a billboard on their website because it gets them attention for what else they're doing, not benefiting us in the long run. So that's a challenge that we have. But to try to answer the question, how do you innovate with our audience? It's that's one of our biggest challenges, is how do we reach them? How do we find unique and different and interesting ways of communicating with them? Well, we don't even know whether we're communicating with them, because they've got, you think you're busy and you've got messages coming at you. Well, quadruple that or times it by 10. How do you stand out? And that's really, the biggest challenge that we have, is reaching them. And we can touch on a little bit of those methods as part of some of the other discussions. But one of the ways we found is finding people who are close to our customers. They're trusted advisors, people they have done business with before, who have some kind of existing relationship, and trying to create a way for that person to be incentivized. It's not always financial, and giving them an opportunity to bring it up in conversation. So we've created a chairman's advisory council, or a business development council, however you wish to phrase it. It works differently in different marketplaces. We invite those people on in non-paid positions, but it gives them a reason when they're sitting at dinner with a billionaire They're catching up on their financial issues or whatever else it is that they're doing, some other advice that they're giving them on their philanthropy or something else. Say, hey, I met this guy at a conference, or I was introduced and they've asked me to join their business advisory board. It's a great organization. It's a really fun company. Let me tell you about it. Well, that's actually a lead generation moment for us, and we've crafted that, and a lot has gone into it, into the development of just that one moment. So that's one of the ways in which we've tried to innovate.
How do you link innovation and results? Maybe we can start with you.
Sure. I mean, getting to the results part also correlates to metrics in some capacity if we're talking marketing here. But the results to us is sales and revenue, and it's that clear. And all of our marketing efforts have to drive towards that opportunity. Well, it's not, that doesn't sound like rocket science. Sorry, I had to throw that in there.
I'm used to it.
Yeah, there you go, right? Certainly you have to, I always meet folks, even in my organization, that don't have that on the brain. They're so consumed about their particular role or job that they have to do that. So when you're talking about innovation, it has to drive everything to the bottom line. I think many of us follow a lot of industry trades, and of course the Southwest is always an example for great marketing and whatnot. But basically, heard an article that they welcome innovation from anyone and everyone, but the CEO or chairman, you get that opportunity to suggest an idea if you work for Southwest. I believe, I could be paraphrasing here, but one woman had said we should offer free food while others are not. Everybody's paying. And her idea was rejected because it's not driving. People aren't going to take Southwest because they offer free food. So you have to make sure that the innovation is connected to the bottom line result.
We can't, because our conversion tail is so long. Some parents decide in a week, but for most it is the most highly considered decision they could possibly make, where to educate their child. So we have a long tail that can be 1.5 to 2 years. So we can't wait to see the result on the bottom line. So I have a very deep bench on analytics, and we measure every week. We sit together, my direct reports, and we go through pages and pages of analytics, KPIs, from high-level dashboard down to what's happening in each state by each product line. And it's the non-glamorous part of marketing that is the secret weapon, because most CEOs and outside people think it's about the colors and the logo. And really, the secret to any great, effective marketer success is, have they built a tremendous analytics core? And that's what I focus on, having very good, and even where it's imperfect, because guess what? Our analytics are not perfect, and our tracking mechanisms aren't perfect, and where they're not perfect, we get really innovative at coming up with reasonable approximations so that we can make smart decisions and fine-tuning adjustments.
Yeah, I concur. I mean, anybody who doesn't see marketing as the fuel that drives the sales engine is one of those people who's going to be around for 18 months. And that's it. I mean, you've got to look at marketing and measure marketing through your sales performance. There is really no other way to measure it at the end of the day. You can get into a lot of the fine detail because you've got to find out what works properly, and you've got to do it religiously and relentlessly. And if you've got to trace each one of those campaigns and each one of those tweaks that you make into sales dollars at the end of the day, because without that, unfortunately, you're not going to stay around for long enough. And that that's when you come back to innovation, how do you measure it? How do you get it down to metrics? Anything new that you try, you have to measure, because you've got to see the sales results from it. Otherwise, you've got to kick it to the side and say, nice idea, may have won us an award, but guess what? We're not going to be in business next year if we keep on winning awards and not selling anything. So that's the cold, hard reality of marketing. It's a support function for sales, and sales is what supports your job. So,
Well, very inspiring panel. Thank you very much for inspiring us.